Assalamu alaikum guys, I'm back with another video, and in this video I will show you how to install Smart Azan on Raspberry Pi. Uh, you can play Azan automatically on your Google Home speakers using Raspberry Pi. The benefits are you don't need your computer on all the time and Raspberry Pi will take over, and Raspberry Pi takes only 5 volt. If you just want to play Azan without Raspberry Pi, using your Windows computer, then please view the description below and simply install the software using smartazan.com without Raspberry Pi. Now, in order to install SmartAzan on Raspberry Pi, there are 3 steps involved. Step number 1 will be we will be installing Raspberry Pi operating system on Raspberry Pi itself, which I will show you in detail how to do it. The step number 2 will be we'll be installing a script on Raspberry Pi. Very simple. I will show you that as well. And step number 3 will be I will be connecting our Raspberry Pi or syncing our Raspberry Pi with Microsoft Windows computer. That's one-time step. Once we sync our Raspberry Pi with computer, we don't need our computer anymore. When all these 3 steps are done, you no longer need your computer on all the time for Azans. All the links to purchase parts are in the description below. So let's get started. A Raspberry Pi is a small credit card size computer. Let me show you how it looks like. So here's a Raspberry Pi. You see, it's a small computer. As you can see, it has a internet networking port, some USBs, HDMI, and a power cable. It's very simple. Think of it like a mini computer. It only takes 5 volt. Links are below if you need to purchase this from Amazon. You will also need a small micro SD card. This is the same card you use in your Samsung phones or your digital cameras. This card is basically to store operating system for Raspberry Pi. For example, in Windows computers, you have Windows as an operating system. In Raspberry Pi, it also has an operating system. It's called Raspbian. So I will show you how to install operating system on this micro SD card, and then you need to put it into your Raspberry Pi just like this. You will also need a power supply. Think of it like a charger. You have your phones. So what you do is you just take your power supply, you plug it in your Raspberry Pi, and boom, there you go. That's all you need. A simple Raspberry Pi, a micro SD card, and a power supply. Now I will show you how to install Raspbian, the software for your Raspberry Pi, in this tutorial. So let's get started. So I have this micro SD card. What I will do is I will put it in this little adapter. So when you purchase this micro SD card, it comes with this adapter anyways. Why? Because what you do is you put this adapter, put this micro SD card into this adapter, and this goes in your computer, so we can copy the software into this micro SD card. I have all the links in the description below for the micro SD card with the adapter, Raspberry Pi, and the power supply. All of this stuff shouldn't cost you more than 60 or 70 bucks, depending where you're buying it from. Once you have it all set, you can have Azan play automatically without needing your computer, and it takes only 5 volts. So you don't need to worry about your electricity bill if that's one of your concerns. So let's download the software for our Raspberry Pi. Head over to raspberrypi.org. I will also add the link in the description, and then click on downloads. In my case, I'm on Windows, so I will click on Imager for Windows. The software should start downloading right here. Now let's install the software, and done. It will ask you what exactly you want to install. So in my case, I will choose Raspberry Pi with desktop, and it's asking where you want to install. So I will choose my SD card, which I already have in my computer, and I will choose this option, and I will choose write. It is asking you, are you sure you want to erase everything your SD card? So I will just say yes, and it will start writing the operating system to my SD card. While it's writing, let me show you what exactly I did with my SD card. Here's my SD card. I took my SD card, I placed it in this jacket, and this goes into my computer. Now as you can see, this is in my computer, and I am writing the operating system using this tool right here. So let's wait for this process to finish. Once it's finished, then we will insert the SD card back into our Raspberry Pi and continue with the setup. So here you go, you can see it. The software is done writing the operating system to the SD card. So the next step is to take this SD card out of my computer, put it back into Raspberry Pi and boot it up. So let's see how that's done. Here's the SD card I just took out from my computer after writing the software. So I will take this out. This is like a hard drive for my Raspberry Pi, and I will take my Raspberry Pi and it goes about right here. So let me put this in. Now Raspberry Pi is installed into this micro SD card, and I have this power adapter connected, and now I will connect this into a wall outlet, and then I will take a HDMI cord. One end will go here for the HDMI cord, and the other end will go into your TV or monitor or whatever you have, and then we will configure the Raspberry Pi. So let's go to the next step where I will have HDMI connected to my Raspberry Pi, and it's plugged in to a wall outlet. So let's configure the Raspberry Pi on the monitor now. Here this is my Raspberry Pi desktop. I have it connected via HDMI cable. Only thing that I forgot to mention was you should also connect a keyboard and a mouse to Raspberry Pi USB port as well, so we can complete this setup. Do keep in mind that we need keyboard, mouse and monitor only for this step. Once we are done installing Smart Azan on Raspberry Pi, you can disconnect the keyboard and mouse and the monitor. We would not be needing it anymore. You can simply plug your Raspberry Pi anywhere you want, and it should just work fine without the monitor and keyboard or mouse. So please connect the mouse and keyboard to your Raspberry Pi, and let's get started to the next step of installing Smart Azan on Raspberry Pi. First, we will connect our Raspberry Pi with Wi-Fi. If you have Wi-Fi in your house, so simply just click on this and choose your Wi-Fi network and connect to it. Otherwise, you can just use a LAN or internet port back of your Raspberry Pi to connect with the internet. So go ahead, click on it and connect it with your Wi-Fi network. So I'm going to open smartazan.com on Raspberry Pi, and then I'm going to click on Setup and Raspberry Pi. Once I click on it, scroll down until you see this line, installing a Raspberry Pi, installing Smart Azan on Raspberry Pi. So what I want you to do is copy this script and then click on this terminal window, this black window. Once you click on it, it will open like this. Now I'm going to paste in the script which I just copied from smartazan.com and then hit enter. This step will install all the required files and applications for Raspberry Pi. So let's wait for this step to finish. If it asks you for something like this, do you want to continue? Hit Y and press enter. There you go. We are done with the Raspberry Pi setup. So at this point, I will just close this window and disconnect the mouse, disconnect the keyboard, disconnect the monitor, and put my Raspberry Pi anywhere I want. With the Raspberry Pi setup, we are all done. All the links are below to purchase the Raspberry Pi, power supply, and micro SD card. Now the next step is to sync our Raspberry Pi with our Microsoft Windows computer. So now I will log back into my Microsoft Windows computer and tell my computer where to find the Raspberry Pi. So let's go to that step. So I'm back on my Windows computer. So let's fire up the browser, go to smartazan.com. And I will click on download. I will type in my name and email address and click on download to download the software. Once the software is downloaded, just click on it, and if you see this box, don't worry about it, just click on more info and click on run anyways. So let's install it. The standard setup. Just click OK, next, and click yes, next, and install, and launch the software. Now let's just enter our address, where you live, which method you want to use, and where exactly you want to play your Azan. So in my case, I will choose Office speaker. By the way, you can group multiple Google Home speakers into one, and Azan will play on all speakers. So in my case, I'm going to choose Office speaker and click on Save All Settings. Now all the settings are saved. You can adjust the time if you want. You can adjust the surahs. You can schedule the surahs if you want. You can adjust the volume for Azans if you want, or you have all those options. But in this tutorial, we're going to show you how to connect our Raspberry Pi with Windows. This is just a one-time step. Once we synchronize our or connect our Raspberry Pi with Microsoft Windows computer, we no longer need our computer. We can just turn off our Windows computer, and Raspberry Pi will take over. So in order to do this, let's click on Raspberry Pi setup and then click on the option sync with Raspberry Pi. It will ask, did you install Smart Azan on Raspberry Pi? We already did that, so click yes. You will see this window. So here it found a Smart Azan 11. The green sign means our script worked and a Raspberry Pi is installed, and now it's syncing all the data, our address and prayer times, with Raspberry Pi, and boom, all done. Service is online, we are connected, and should be all good. So now I can close this window, I can close this software, and I can shut down my computer. I don't need my computer anymore. Raspberry Pi will take over from here. Like I said, it only takes 5 volt, and it will just play Azans anytime you want. Setup is pretty simple. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below or visit smartazan.com and contact me from there, and I'll be more than happy to help you if you have any questions.